Hello and welcome to the 10-Minute Manager. In this tutorial we're going to show you how to create and review your rosters. Let's begin by clicking on the Input Center button. Okay, once we click the Input Center, what you'll see in front of you is the week ahead, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday across here. These areas here that I'm highlighting are the areas where we enter in our proposed revenue, and what you'll notice is that we've already got some items entered in here. So for Monday, the proposed cafe revenue has been entered in at $2,000 net. We're anticipating $200 worth of catering and $100 to be taken at the bar, and very similar thing on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Okay, it's very important that before you begin your roster that you put in projected turnover, and these are estimated projections on what we think we're going to be turning over the following week. A good source of this information may be historical data from this time last year. You may also consider simply using the week before. It's very important that you take into account certain trends and things that are happening in your work environment. These numbers should be reviewed on a daily basis, so you can adjust your roster on a daily basis as need be. But let's say this is the week before and we're preparing the roster for the following week. This is what we need to be looking at. Okay, so we've entered in this data. Once we've entered in this data here, it's important to then return to our roster. So we click the Return button and then click our Rosters button. Here you'll see, again, we've got Monday through to Sunday on our roster, and we've got our employees' names listed on the side here. We've also got their job descriptions, which can be altered here. Okay, you may want to remove these entirely. You've got 4 columns listed next to each name. You have the start time, the finish time, how long their break will be, and their actual hours worked. Okay, when entering the times, it's important that your times stay in this particular format: hours, colon, minutes, colon, seconds, space, AM or PM. If it doesn't remain in that format, the program will have problems calculating your actual hours worked and consequently give you incorrect information when it comes to your wages. Okay, let me show you a quick example of what happens if we don't maintain that particular format. Here you can see we've got J finishing at 2 p.m. If I was just typing that in and I forgot to put a space in there and I pressed enter, you can see over here we've got a problem. Okay, we get hash marks. You may very well get hash lines showing up, or you may just get an incorrect hour calculating. Okay, regardless, this is something that you need to be very wary of and make sure that your managers are entering in this data correctly. Obviously, there's a few telltale signs. Your hours worked may be exorbitant. You may get these hashes coming up, or you can see from the finish time that the format of J's finish time isn't similar to that of everybody else. Okay, so we'd go back in there, we'd put the space in, press enter, and that comes up the way it should. Okay, so that's a quick example into things that can go wrong. Okay, so when you are entering in times, make sure that you put them in as 2, colon, 00 for the minutes, 00 for the seconds, and space, PM. If we press enter now, that'll give us the correct time. Okay, so I hope that sheds clarity. What I find a lot of my managers will actually do is they will copy and paste start and finish times, and then what they like to do is simply edit the times up here. Okay, you can do that also, and that can be quite a help when you're starting a roster from scratch, just copying and pasting generic times across from Monday through to Sunday. Okay, moving along. What you'll actually also notice here is that we have a percentage up the top here. Now this percentage calculates your wages as a percentage of the predicted turnover which we entered in a little earlier. Okay, so if we're anticipating we're going to be turning over around about $2,000 in the cafe net, we want to make sure that we can meet the KPIs that we set in our setup page correctly. So what we see here is that we're at 41%. If we want to get our wages down below 30%, we're obviously going to have to chop our roster somewhat here. Okay, now obviously there's a trade-off. You need to make sure that you're looking after your customers, but you don't want to run your business inefficiently. Okay, now the Australian Taxation Office also sets benchmarks for many businesses. It may be a worthy exercise to jump on the ATO website and have a look at some of these benchmarks. That'll give you an idea of where your business should be operating. In this instance, I know my business can operate below 30% wages, so we'll go ahead and make that happen. So in this instance, I'll say Joe does not need to work through till 5 p.m. and one person can do the close, and we'll get Joe finishing up at 1 p.m. when I know things get considerably quiet. And automatically you'll see that's made a big difference. We're down to 36% now. We can also remove Jerry from the equation completely on this day. We do not need Jerry to be working, and I believe that Jay only needs to be here till 1 o'clock, so we'll change that to 1 o'clock, and we're down to 30.45%. I'm quite happy with that, and that's an example of how we would set our roster for Monday to meet our KPIs. We'll do a similar thing with our wages on Tuesday. I'll give Jim the day off on Tuesday. That gets me down to 38%. I know Tuesdays will be quieter, so I'll change his finishing time, Joe's finishing time, to 12. We're down to 33%. And we'll change Jay's finish time to 12 also. And we're down to 31%. If you're happy with 31%, you can leave it at that. Okay, so I won't go on and do the whole exercise for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But this does give you an indication of what actually needs to be done to a roster to meet your KPIs. And you need to run through this together with your managers to make sure that they're not sacrificing customer service for your KPIs, and your customers are being looked after with the amount of staff that you've placed on that particular day. Okay, but looking at the roster, certainly if you're at 47%, something needs to happen. You can't afford for 40% of your revenue to be allocated to your wages. On the flip side of the coin, you can see here on Saturday, our roster shows that our wages are only 11% of our turnover. Now, common sense should prevail here, and you should realise that you're probably understaffed in this instance, and you will need to place extra staff on. So I would probably be calling in Jay and asking Jay to work from 7:00 a.m. through till perhaps 10 a.m. 10:00 a.m. Okay, that's up to 16%. Let's have him work through till midday. And there was a mistake there. You can see the hashes are on there. Now the mistake is that midday should probably be PM. Okay, so that looks a little more workable. I dare say there's still a little understaffed there. From my experience, their wages probably need to be at around anywhere between 26 to 30% to be operating optimally. So I would probably put someone else on to work on that day, and we would say, let's cut and paste this, copy, paste, and we'll have them finishing work at 3 p.m. Perhaps a bit too late. Let's make that 1. And bear in mind that, if you're paying Joe as a manager a higher wage, that's going to affect your percentages a lot more drastically than putting on a junior during that period as well. Okay, so I've got Joe working, and Saturday looks around about the mark. Okay. The other thing you'll notice about the roster is this field here on Monday where we have the date. If you change the date here, it will change across the whole of your 10-minute manager week. So if we change that to the 30th of the 6th, 2011, you'll notice Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday change automatically. So it's important that you change the day of your week starting there. Okay. Just below your roster, We've got notes to staff. This is where you can put memos for your staff on a weekly basis, information that they may need to know. In this instance, one of the notes are, please ensure you enter the correct coffee details, as it takes time to correct incorrect orders for customers. Okay, obviously the most efficient form of communication is personal communication, so if it is something serious, make sure that you address it directly with your staff. But for day-to-day memos, that is a good way to communicate things. Okay, so that's our roster there. Obviously, you would click Save to save your roster, and from here what you would want to do is print your roster. So you'd go down to Print and select Print, and you'll be able to print and post your roster. Please note that when you do print your roster, this little return arrow doesn't come up on your roster either. So that's a quick rundown on how to create your roster. What I would suggest to all managers is at the end of the day that they return back to the input center. They put the correct turnover amounts, both net and GST, and that will then be able to tell them when they return back to the roster if they had met their wages KPIs. So I hope you enjoyed this quick tutorial on creating a roster.